Video. Sorry, what?
But if you stand.
The stand? What stand?
Or for the camera, is it? The
I
camera.
don't know. I don't know. And anyway, this is live now, so here we go. So today we are starting a new topic, that being soul, spirit, and body. Because just like the Lord is 3 in 1, He is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So we have been created 3 in 1. Okay, and the three things aren't distinct and separate. They are intertwined, so they do affect each other, okay? So we'll be doing a few sessions starting today on the soul, and looking at how our emotions affect us, and then we'll do a few sessions then on the body as well, then, in terms of our physical kind of makeup. But it wouldn't be a Byron talk without us doing a little top 10 just to kind of to get us going, okay? So today's top 10 is what would my personal top 10 tearjerker songs of all time be, okay? Yeah. So there'll be some classic tearjerker songs in there, but they will have more of a Byron bias to them, okay? So you're going to have 1 minute to think of what would Byron's top 10 tearjerker songs of all time be. And your minute starts now. Get in there, talk to the person next to you. What would my top 10 tearjerkers be? 30 seconds left. Not a lot of talking going on.
It's really hard.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
I thought easy.
As long as you got no heavy rocking, you just like heavy rocking.
20 seconds. Quiet crowd. Last 10 seconds.
I'm not very good with music. Well, music quite well.
5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So let's move it on then. So, right, it didn't come up on my PowerPoint for some reason. But my top 10, right, coming in at number 10, Nothing Compares to You by Sinead O'Connor.
Oh!
See, you even touched your heart then. Joss, you know that one, surely, don't you?
I do, but
It's a cover
I
page.
wouldn't have had it down at one of the tones of tears.
Well, there's a little caveat here, right? The 10, 9 and 8 are not ones that we personally would shed a tear to, but I recognise that they are classics. So you can understand what I'm doing. So that's number 10. Number 9 is Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You. Again, another cover. Who did it first?
Dolly Parton.
Dolly Parton, there it is, lovely, okay. Number 8, this one does make me cry, right? You Raise Me Up by Westlife. Yeah, whenever I hear it, I often kind of turn away, look away from people, you know, hide my face. Right, number 7, now these are my kind of personal ones, right? Back to Black by Amy Winehouse. Oh, this is Split the Room, and the Silence, the Tumbleweed. Don't you like a bit of Back to Black?
Yeah.
Great stuff. You just didn't picture it with me, is it?
No.
No, I picture for you. I don't see that tear.
The tearjerker. Fine. Okay, there we are. Maybe this one will. Yesterday by the Beatles, number 6. Yesterday.
That's the most copied song
See, and everyone sing along now, but did you know, fun fact trivia, the song's originally called Scrambled Eggs. And it was going to be about his girlfriend's legs. True story. You can ask Paul himself. You can ask him. But would it have had the same tearjerker effect on me? Probably not. Probably not. Okay, number 5, Mad World by Gary Jules. I love that song. It was a Christmas number 1.
Yeah.
But what a sad song for Christmas number 1. And for me, even better than the original. A lot of these are covers as well. Number 4, Fix You by Coldplay.
Oh!
Love that song. Love that song. When the ride starts getting leathered, oh, it fills me up every time. Lovely. Okay, number 3, Supermarket Flowers by Ed Sheeran.
Oh, yeah.
All buckets over that one. You heard that one?
Yeah.
Oh, tears. Number 2, Everybody Hurts by R.E.M.
Oh! Classic.
Absolute classic. You shake your head there. You're not happy with that one, then? That's absolute. How can you not? Well, surely this one then. Number 1, Bridge Over Troubled Water by Simon and Garfunkel. Oh, every time. Well, today we're looking at sadness, right? And sadness is associated with the colour blue. And there's a whole genre of music called the blues, which is dedicated to being sad. But as we just discussed there, the blues don't have the monopoly on sad songs. There's sad songs everywhere. Sadness is a genuine, legitimate emotion. It's a God-given emotion, and we all feel it. Yeah? God has given us emotions. And if you read the Psalms of the Old Testament, a third of them are what we call laments, which is where you're crying out to God, God, this isn't fair. I don't understand. Help me to get through this situation. So it's not all things are going great and I'm chuffed with life. A third of them are, God, I'm struggling, I'm on my bones. Help me out, God, you know? And Jesus himself felt sorrow and sadness. So quick quiz for you. What is the shortest verse in the whole Bible?
Jesus wept.
Jesus wept. There it is. Look at that. Yes, indeed. John 11, verse 35 is literally 2 words. Jesus wept. The shortest verse in the Bible talks about the Saviour's humanity and his emotions. He wept. Now the background to that is that Jesus his mate Lazarus had just passed away, just died. Now even when Jesus knew that he could raise him from the dead, and that he was going to raise him, it still didn't stop him being moved in his deep emotions. Especially seeing them, the tears of everybody else, his empathy rose up. He wept. So he's a man who wept. It actually says that Jesus was a man of sorrows. And we find that in the Old Testament. There's the book of Isaiah, which is a massive book. It was written between 500 and 700 years before Jesus actually walked the earth. And it says this, in terms of Jesus, the suffering servant, that he was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief, like one from whom men hide their faces. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. So Jesus it says that he was despised twice. So that's how despised he was. I don't know whether you've ever known what it's like to be despised. Proper painful place to be. Yeah? And to be rejected as well. A man of sorrows. And it's a beautiful phrase to say that he was acquainted with grief. But that meant he knew what it was to be bereaved, to lose people. Yeah? So Jesus knows what we go through. He's been there himself, and he has done it. When I was away on holiday, I'm doing my Bible in a year, and I read the following passage, which was just after the Last Supper. So that's the context of this. The boys had just taken communion together, just had their last meal, sung some hymns, and then he goes out to the Mount of Olives, right? So Jesus went out as usual to the Mount of Olives, and his disciples followed him. So he's used to going to there to pray. And Judas knows he will go there to pray because he's away from the crowds, right? On reaching the place, he said to them, "Pray that you will not fall into temptation." He withdrew about a stone's throw beyond them, knelt down and prayed, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done." An angel from heaven appeared to him and strengthened him. And being in anguish, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground. So shout out some words how Jesus had been feeling at that point, knowing what was coming next, knowing he was going to be betrayed, abandoned by his friends, he was going to be tortured and killed. What emotions would he be feeling?
Despair.
Despair. Absolutely despair. Who else? Who said something then?
I was saying the same.
Abandoned, yeah, he knew abandonment was coming. He knew that one of his best friends was going to stab him in the back for a handful of silver. Yeah.
I'd also say, believe it or not, love bound.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the deep, deep love of Jesus. Knowing what he was going to do, knowing what was before him, he saw you and said it was worth it. That's amazing. He knew he was going to be tortured, abandoned, betrayed, and killed. I did a little bit of research, and the physiological thing that he went through is something called hematidrosis. Yeah. Anyway, so that is where you go through, you're laughing, where you go through extreme stress and you sweat drops of blood. And that's been documented in World War II when the fellas were in the bunkers and they were going to go over the top, and they knew that they were going to get run down. They knew they were machine gun fodder, but they did it anyway. They were so anxious about it, they would sweat drops of blood. So it's not something that's made up. This is a real thing that Jesus went through. So he knew what was going to happen. And God is so good in how we kind of plan these things that on my Facebook timeline as a memory, this came up yesterday. It says that Jesus knew, but Judas ate too. So he knew he was going to be betrayed. I'll read it out to you. It says, think about this for a second. Jesus knew. He goes into that room with his disciples. He knows he's going to be betrayed. He knows it's Judas who will turn against him. He knows that he has been sold out for a handful of silver. stabbed in the back by one he has poured his life into. Yet, in that room, hours before the death of Jesus, Judas ate too. So he still had food with his friends. Even though he knew he was going to betray him, he still had food with him. Jesus fed Judas too. Jesus prayed for Judas too. Jesus washed Judas's feet too. I struggle to fathom that kind of love, which is the love that you referred to earlier, Sue, right? A love that would feed the mouth that deceived you. A love that would wash the treasonous feet of the traitor. A love that could forgive even the vilest of betrayals. I honestly struggle to comprehend it, and then, suddenly, I realise I'm Judas. And in that moment, I'm so thankful and altogether overwhelmed with Judas ate too. So we get to eat too. Jesus knew what was coming. He knew, and yet he was able to overcome. Why is that? It's because Jesus wasn't ruled by his emotions. He ruled over them. And we are called to do the same thing. So no matter what kind of hard times and sadness we go through, we're not called to be ruled by those, but we are called to rule over them. Someone told me that, and it's a brilliant talk I heard before, that Jesus could have had a shadow mission. So at any point, he could have decided to abort what God wanted him to do and gone out for himself and done it all for himself. So if you think about when he was in the wilderness, the enemy came to him and tempted him 3 times with wealth and prestige and power and honor and all those kinds of things to try and, appeal to Jesus as he would go and all of that. But Jesus said, no, the Father's got a mission for me to do. And even when he was on the cross, he had people cheering at him. If you're all that, save yourself, come down. And he could have. But he said, no, I've got a mission to do. And in the same way with this, Jesus had a mission to do. Because of that, he's able to overcome his emotions. And we are too. Jesus can identify with everything that we go through. It says this in Hebrews, which is a book in the New Testament. Hebrews 4, verses 16 to 18. Since then, we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. Let us hold fast our confession. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in the time of need. Jesus has been through everything that you've been through, and he came out the other end. And that gives us confidence to approach him, knowing that we can relate to him and he can relate to us. That it's not something abstract to him that doesn't make any sense. He knows. So take confidence from that. That Jesus knows exactly how you feel. And he wants you to overcome. He wants you to rule over your emotions rather than be ruled by them. Okay? Because your feelings are up and down. They fluctuate on any given day. Sometimes for me, fluctuate several times in a day. And there's a phrase that says HALT. H-A-L-T. So depending on whether I'm hungry, angry, lonely or tired, I can not behave particularly well and be ruled by emotions. But it's about me overcoming them and ruling over them rather than the other way around. As you know, I've just come back off holiday, and lovely holiday, but man alive, I'm coming back on the plane, I've got like these really nasty bites on my leg, remember them? And I'm like, here, oh, look at that. So much so that these itchy legs, and you itch them, it's like, it feels amazing as you itch, but as soon as you stop, they're still itching, and you just got to keep going, so it's best not to itch them at all. But it reminded me of an Old Testament character called Job. Now the background to Job, who's this fellow here in the corner, is he was a super wealthy fellow, right? He had a massive family, massive flocks, he was wealthy, he had it all going for him. But the enemy comes up to God and he says, hey, you see that Job over there? He said, let me have a go with him and see if he still worships you. So God gave him permission, and Job did not let God down. He stuck with him the whole time. But he lost everything. He lost his family, flocks, you name it, even his health. And where I was like having a bit of a scratch on my leg, it says that he would use broken pottery to scratch his sores just because he was in so much kind of pain and discomfort. But Job learned things about God towards the end of the book of Job that he would never have learned if he hadn't suffered. And we learn things about God when we go through times of hardship and suffering that we would never ever learn if we always have what we call mountaintop experiences. When the world's great and you think that bursting into the hills are alive, But if you never have those valley experiences where things are tough, you don't draw near to God in the same way. And Jesus told us in this first year, John 16, that we will have trouble. And in life is hard. He says this, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. So in Jesus we can have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. If anybody has sold you like PPE wrongly, that the Christian life is easy, then you need a refund, okay? Because it's not. You know, we're in a battle. So much so, Chloe's not well at the minute, Sarah's not well at the minute, it's all kind of kicking off with the building and stuff like that. Emma's not well. Charlie, do you know what I mean? We're in a battle. This is a spiritual battle. The enemy doesn't want us to take place, but we are. We're going to take it. We're battling on. But that's what the enemy wants, is he wants to hold us back. So life is hard and we're in trouble, but what we need to do is to stick together and work our way through it. Now, back in about 2010, my kids had a Scooby-Doo scooter.
Oh, I'm Tom there.
Tom did.
Yeah.
Was it like I tried to get a bigger picture,
Yeah,
but it was out of
yeah,
focus. Yeah, green with a bit of Scooby-Doo on it. So as you know then, because Tom had one, it was quite small and down like that, right? And for the camera, right down there. Because my kids were small, so it makes sense. All right. So one day we had to climb. So there's the incline below. So if you imagine back this way is the car park for Blackpill. So we made our way up the incline and we were kind of making our way back down. As you come towards the car park, there's a steeper bit. And I thought, it would be cool to show my kids how my dad does the scooter. Alright, so he gets on the scooter, he's going down, but comes off said scooter, right? Land on my knee, land on my elbow. You look around and because A, it hurts, and it's like your head's got, oh, it's embarrassing and all of that, alright? I end up with a scar on my elbow over there. Can you see it? I might not be able to see it from there. But I still got a scar there since 2010 from falling off a scooter. And that's the reminder for me by, grow up, get on, don't use the scooter. Do you know what I mean? Now,
Serves you right.
serves me right. I wrote off a pair of trousers and a jumper by falling off said scooter. What an idiot, alright? But I had to leave that, scab up, and then heal, and then over time it's left the scar, right? And that's exactly the same with grief and sadness and things that we go through, is that we have to leave them to heal and stop prodding them, because the more we keep prodding stuff, the longer it's going to take to heal, yeah? I've read in the Old Testament recently about Moses when he passed away. And when he passed away, there was like 30 days of national mourning. Everybody grieved for 30 days and then they can move on. Wouldn't it be amazing if each of us were allowed in our workplaces, when you lose someone, that you've got 30 days just to grieve and mourn and then move on? Because some of us, we're just not allowed like you know? But it's a healthy thing to do. We need to grieve. Because grief works like this. If you can see on the left-hand side there's a box, and there's a ball, and there's a pink button on the side. So the box represents your life. The pink is, the ball is the, lilac is like your grief. And then the pink is the pain button, right? Now when you go through something, when you lost someone or lost something and you're grieving, and it's quite new and fresh, the ball is going to be really, really large, okay? And just like, for those of you old enough to remember DVDs, right? The DVD screensaver here would have the little logo and it would bounce around the screen, remember that? Yeah? Exactly the same. That ball is going to bounce around the square, right? And every time it hits the pain button, it really hurts. And it could be anything that triggers it. It could be a song that we could have mentioned earlier. It could be a smell. It could be literally anything at all. Like, for me, right? One time we were in Lidl's and they sell banana fritters, and they were my mum's favourite. So I was going to buy some, but I said, don't bother buying them out, so your mum's going to eat them. So, I got them. But we went home then, I said, Mum, you never guess what? They sell banana fritters at Lidl's. She said, did you get them? I said, no. She's like, oh, great. So in our house now, if ever you kind of led on to think something's going to happen and it doesn't happen, we say, oh, banana fritters, like, you know. But now every time I see a banana fritter, I think of my mum, and it kind of hits that pain button. Now, over time, as you move on with life, right, and you do carry on with life, and there's nothing wrong with that, the ball will get smaller. So it will hit that pain button less often, which is great. But when it does, it hurts just the same. And it's to cut yourself a bit of slack with that. But it's also to give yourself permission that it's okay to move on with life, and it's okay for that ball to get smaller. You're not disrespecting the person that's gone. You're honouring that person. A friend of mine passed away on Monday. Former work colleague, lovely lady, and I let other colleagues know about it. And one of those colleagues was so upset by it, she had to take 2 days off work. But then on Thursday, I texted her, see how she's doing. She said, I'm in work and I got my lippy back on, because that's what she would have wanted. Do you know what I mean? She wouldn't want me to mope, she wanted me to move on. And that's what we're called to do, is not to be so stuck in one place where we're prodding the scar all the time that never heals, but we give ourselves a chance to heal. Yeah? So, about moving on with life, King David said this in Psalm 30. He says, "A weeping may endure for a night." So there will be a time of weeping. It will be. You know, life is hard and things can be sad. But joy comes in the morning. You will wake up tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a new day. And it's about embracing that day and going for it. One of the things I'm loving at the minute is all Becky's Facebook posts are super positive. Do you know what I mean? You're embracing the day, moving on. Do you know what I mean? It's fab. It's fantastic. But when you go through stuff, it does change you. It does mark you. Now, prior to losing my mum, if we said that blue was the colour of grief, I would have described myself as like a bright orange, like my watch strapper there. Or more annoyingly, like Tigger. So that was me. That's how I saw myself before. Quite a vibrant, positive, faith-filled kind of type of person. But then when my mum passed away, it changed me. And I would describe myself now as more of a burnt orange colour. Still orange, still positive, but darker. You know, I've changed. And I will forever be changed. And, you know, and that's okay. In fact, when I was running around Penflegate Woods today, some of the bracken is kind of dying back, and it's like that kind of dark orange colour, but it's very vibrant in the sun, and in the rain, sorry. And I thought, you know what, that's the colour that I am. Kind of similar to my t-shirt. You are? I like this t-shirt as well. It's one of my favourites. In my former workplace, though, somebody wasn't quite sure what it was and thought it was like fallopian tubes and a womb, but it's not. So, just as an aside, it's a cow.
Yeah, you got it. I was trying to work out why they thought it was
Sorry, moving on. So when you go through stuff in life, it will change you. And that's okay. Do you know what I mean? You know, you'll never be the same again. And that's alright. But it's still about deciding to move on as best you can. Right? And not about being stuck in that same situation. Not about having a kind of pity party and forever woe is me, like, you know. Trying to remember persons or situations in a good way, in a positive way. I'd be interested to think on your thoughts on this. Abraham Lincoln, former US president, said this: "Most folks are as happy as they make up their minds to be." So most folks are as happy as they make up their minds to be. Some are nodding. What's your thoughts on that? Do you agree with that? Disagree? It's only one man's thoughts.
He's a very clever man.
You're a very clever man.
I agree with that, really, because a lot of people, I don't know, I don't say they decide to put themselves in that position, but they live for the woe-me and I find being down.
Negative and they thrive off it.
Yeah, you know, and I find that people can be like that, and you can get so wrapped up in that world then, you just, every day is the same, and I don't think a lot of people get so wrapped up, they don't realise that they are doing it, and then it becomes an everyday situation.
See, now I would agree with you, Em, but I'm no mental health expert, and I don't want to kind of put anybody down if they're struggling with their thoughts and stuff like that. But equally, there's a phrase, like an Eastern thought, that says you can't stop birds from flying over your head, so you can't stop yourself from having the occasional thought, but you can stop that bird from nesting in your hair. So you can stop yourself from dwelling on it and thinking about it all the time, and it becomes all consuming, like, you know. So in the same way, what Abraham Lincoln is saying here is, you can choose to frame things in a certain way. You can choose to frame it in a positive way or a negative way, and that will determine then your day, you know. Craig Rochelle, like a pastor I really respect, is you can't have a positive life with a negative mind. So if we're always thinking about negative things, the sad things, the hard things that we go through, we will always be negative. It's kind of like this cartoon with Charlie Brown. You know what, you can see it? Charlie Brown says in the corner there, "This is my depressed stance." And he explains that when you're depressed, it makes a lot of difference how you stand. The worst thing you can do is straighten up and hold your head up high, because then you'll start to feel better. If you're going to get any joy out of being depressed, you've got to stand like this. And it kind of makes the point, like, you know, if we're consistently determined to be down, we're going to be down. In my Bible and my devotionals later, one of the things it says is about kind of living palms up. So if you're having an argument with somebody, often you get quite defensive and have that kind of body language. But you try an argument with someone with your palms up, and it's really hard because you're open body language. And our bodies will reflect how we are. So So like Charlie Brown was saying here, if you walk with your head held high, it's far harder to be depressed and down and kind of negative all the time. But it's a choice. But grief and pain is hard. And we need to talk our way through it with other people and choose to move on, like, you know? So we need to rule over our emotions, not let them rule over us. So practically, how do we do that? There's a verse in 2 Corinthians, which is a letter in the New Testament written by Paul, and it says that we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. So we, as in all of us, take captive, take possession of every thought that we think, and we make it obedient to Jesus. So is the thought that I'm thinking now obedient to Jesus? Would it glorify him? Yeah, we control what goes on here. This is where the battleground is. Often, you know, our emotions and stuff come from here. When I was told that my friend had passed away, straight away I felt it here. Yeah? Then I got to try and process it up here. Okay? Take the thought captive. Choose to think the thoughts of Christ. Frame it in a different way. Right? And the last kind of thought I'm going to leave you with is this. My friend Mandy, her mum was super vibrant, super intelligent, passionate, sold out for Jesus, an outstanding woman. Ended up having a stroke and wasn't found for quite some time. And the quicker you can deal with the stroke, the better off you're likely to be. That way, isn't it? Yeah?
My downfall.
So sadly, because Mandy's mum wasn't kind of sorted in time, it profoundly kind of impacted her. And that really kind of, you know, hurt Mandy a lot. She took a long time to process it and make sense of it. And now Mandy's mum's going through Alzheimer's as well, so if the stroke wasn't bad enough, there's that. But Mandy decided to get this tattooed on her arm. The song we sung earlier, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. And that's a choice and a decision that we all have to make. Is it well with my soul? Are we, you know, we are going to go through hard times, but God, is it well with my soul that you're in control? And that we're able to quote Romans 8 where it says that all things work together for the good of those who love him. And it's a real challenge, because sometimes you think, God, what is the good that you're trying to teach me in this situation, because I can't see any at all? Yeah? I am struggling with this. And sometimes that good is just that we're able to help other people afterwards. So like I say, I didn't understand grief till my mum went. Now in the job that I'm doing where I deal with grief a lot, I'm able to understand. And it's not about me then saying, oh yes, well I went through this, that and the other as well. My job's all about listening. Often people say that I'll just sit there, listen and drink tea. It's fab, what a great job. But it's in the listening there's the power. You can give that little gentle nod that I understand, and you know then. Because people will connect with your weaknesses, with the things that you've been through, but they'll be impressed with your strengths. But I want people to connect with me, and we can connect with Jesus because he's been through exactly the same things. So can we say it is well with my soul? Yeah. So let's not be ruled by our emotions, especially kind of sadness, because it can rob us of life, of the future. So because we're stuck in a certain place where we are. But whatever the situation or circumstance was, let's honour that person, that situation, that circumstance, and let's choose to move on and make the best of what we have. Yeah?
Yeah, can I just say, I feel that I got a lot going on at the moment, which I got a lot going on in anyway, but it's a lot going on more. But I feel that the fact that if it wasn't for, I could only get up and walk and run around after a 1-year-old, because before that I was struggling to do something, but I couldn't do it, and I think, if that's got to be God, and you have to have the trust. So I could either get up in the morning and think, oh, here we go again, you know. But if it wasn't for God, it just blows my mind, because if it's not having that reaching out in the mornings, and you can either go through the rest of the day thinking, oh, here we go, or thinking, right, God, what's the situation telling me? If you want for God, that could be worse, if I didn't have the trust. And it's how you deal with your day, and I'm just amazed how, well, it just blows me away, you know, I can get up, do things, move around. I'm not saying it's any easier, but I'm doing these things, and I think if you want, it's God, God's just helping me in that, and I'm so eternally grateful that it's just amazing.
And I'm with you, because don't think that just because I'm up here doing a talk on it that I've got all this sorted at all, by any stretch. But together, And with God's help, we get through, like, do you know? Because, you know, believe it or not, as much as I'm like a cream egg, but I look really hard on the outside,
Yeah.
I'm actually quite soft on the inside. Believe it or not. You know? And I struggle with these things as well, like, do you know? But it is about offering it up to God and saying, God, it is well with my soul. So, what I would want us to do now in response is I'm going to pray, and then I've got like paper and pens for each one of you, and I'm going to play a song which is Weep With Me, which is about Jesus weeping with us. And if you need to pour out something to God, use that time as the song plays to say, God, I'm struggling with this at the minute, this is really hard. And I'm kind of to do what we call business with God. If you want to sit and enjoy the song, fab. If you want to sing along, that's, well, if I can get it dinging, that's all to the good as well. But let's use this time to kind of respond to God, to say, God, I thank you that you understand everything that I go through. Help me in this situation. Yeah? So let me just pray, and then I'll hand out paper and pens, and I'll try and get the song going. So Jesus, we want to give you our emotions. They are God-given, and we want to give them back to you. And we pray that we wouldn't be ruled by them, but we would learn to rule over them. That we would become mature in that way. That we would be helping each other to become more mature in that way. That we would walk alongside each other as we struggle and go through hard times together. Determined to move on and to honour the person or the situation or circumstance that we've kind of struggled and suffered with. So come, Jesus, and minister to our hearts now by the Holy Spirit. We thank you that you know in all things that you've been through, and you relate to us and you understand. So we're able to come with full confidence to you, knowing that you're not going to brush us off, you're not going to rebuke us for having emotions, but you're going to help us to deal with that. In your precious name. Amen.